for the creative mentorship. I'm glad you guys all came over. I'm looking forward to keeping working with some of you. So for those of you that are tuning in online, we're going to be live for about half an hour with the mentors, and then I'm looking forward to keeping working with some of you. So for those of you that are tuning in on the echo, hang on. I forgot I had it. Where is it? I'm listening to myself. Hang on just a second. It's hidden. There we go. Okay. Now it should be good. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you can tune in with us for about half an hour live. And then in order to stay for the rest of it and the really good stuff, you got to go to www.patreon.com/JessicaLarkMentoring. You guys can join this month for as little as $3. You'll see all the different tiers that we have for different documents and contracts and marketing things, as well as conversations that we're having on all kinds of business and getting your business started, pricing, art, that kind of stuff. So, all right. So, Andy's our newbie, so we're going to haze him just slightly.
Perfect. I'm ready.
Good. So we're checking in and we're doing, Ava wanted to discuss contracts and also some of the apps and stuff that I use for business. Is that right? Is there anything else that was on the game plate for today? That sounds good. Ava's just nodding. Okay. All right. So there were a couple of things that I wanted to look at. First off, some of you had some really beautiful work that you were sharing in the critique thing. So maybe we'll start and take a look at some of those. And then we'll move from there and look at some of the art. So let's go back. Sandra, you won banner photo in the group for the week, maybe longer if nobody outplays you. Although I'm really loving on Mike Stapleton's ocean one too. All right, so let's start with Mike, and I'm gonna screen share. There we are. Are you guys seeing this?
Yep.
Good. Okay. So this one is from Mike Stapleton. I'm glad to see that you are still doing ocean and artistry. I know we've been making the jump to the baby photography and doing more portraiture, but I definitely think that this is your calling. I love the colors of this, and this is always magic to me because I don't do a lot of landscape photography, if any at all. And when I am doing it, it's usually as backdrops for the fantasy art. So I'm always amazed at some of the things you guys are able to do. The colors in this are absolutely stunning. And I love when it has this smooth glass look to the water. There's something very ethereal about this with the way that the colors are being echoed between the water and the sky, particularly right along the edge of the rock. You have this like sort of ethereal blue kind of bioluminescence thing going on that just picked up from some of the other colors, and it really helps draw attention to the center. I kind of wish that the human element wasn't there. I actually think that the houses and all of the clutter going on along the beach is kind of distracting from the serene feel that you get, and I guess that would just be personal preference, but this is where I go in and manipulate, and things in my photos are not what they are in reality, because I would take all of this out. I just think it really pulls away. But it might be something too that we could go in and just kind of darken down a little or soften, just so that we're not getting all of these hard architecture lines all the way through, that I think is kind of cutting into this soft flow between the clouds and the water. I like that the rock has the majority of the texture and the angles and the roughness to it, and everything else is soft around it. I think it helps make it the star of the image. Sandra, this is totally out of your realm of normal photography. Tell me a little about this piece.
Have I unmuted myself?
Yes, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely different from what I normally do, as you said. Basically, I have moved down to my parents because my dad's really ill. So I've been down there for the last couple of months helping care for him. And he has loads of dahlias in his garden, which he absolutely loves. And he wins competitions every year for them and stuff. And it just sort of started because I needed a little break at times. Mm-hmm. And I'd never really looked at them before, actually. But the flowers, they're so beautiful and unique. So I started taking photos of them. And I sort of wanted to come up with a collection, maybe to do some greetings cards.
Okay.
I think it's just sort of like a one-off thing. I'm not sure it's, I don't think it's an area that I'm going to move into, but it's just was sort of something to do down there to sort of counteract, you know, the harshness of caring for someone.
What a profound statement. It was a softness to counteract the harshness of caring for someone. And I'm intimately familiar with that, both with my father-in-law, and we're going through it with my grandmother right now. And so I feel you, girlfriend, like in such a deep way. I love that this has an almost painterly quality to it. And I've always loved your artistry and the way that you retouch, but I do think that this, compared to like the banner photo winner, your photographs look very much like photographs, and this has more of sort of an impressionistic kind of feel that I love that you pulled out of this. And I think that there's a lot of symbolism in it that can get pulled out between whether it's opening up or closing in. Mm-hmm. So I think it's well done. I love the colors. I love the softness of it. I love that you left all of the water and that you have the elements of nature going on as well. So, well done.
Thank you.
Good. All right. I'm going to mute you just a little bit because I can hear people in the background. Okay, so we're talking business. We're talking marketing. We're talking getting started. Ava, you're up. What is on your mind?
Okay, so the whole time that we've been together, you as my mentor, I've been trying to work on fear and getting past that. And now that I'm in a place where I feel comfortable and confident moving forward with my work, mm-hmm. I'm now hitting all of the things that I've been avoiding on the business side. So I don't really do any type of portrait work where I'm working with a client or a person that wants to buy portrait work from me. So when it comes to paperwork or contracts or things, my contracts are with the models, with the MUAs, with the designers who are going to help me create this piece that I will eventually sell, hopefully, and make money off of and make my money back. So I need to figure out how to work with rights, how to work with payments, especially because this is an upfront investment for me. I'm putting this money forward to these people who are working professionally with me or for me, and then hoping to gain that investment back when I sell the work.
Okay. So let's go through a typical shoot for you. Who's involved with that and who is getting paid?
Okay, so normally the model would get paid, and it's because most of my sessions involve photography and sculpture. Mm-hmm. So they would not only be modeling physically, but they would also be allowing me to life cast them.
Okay.
So they get paid. Then I have a safety who has to be with me in case anything happens. If there's an allergic reaction, if there's some sort of issue, if any sort of medical things need to happen, I need to have a safety there. Then I have the MUA. And she normally gets paid up front, half when she walks in the door and then half when she leaves.
Okay.
And then if there are other people, that's kind of really dependent on the shoot. If I'm doing anything outdoors, I would normally have another person who's specifically there to help me with lighting and carrying equipment and doing stuff just because of my own physical limitations.
Okay.
But that's it, but that can add up to a lot very quickly.
Okay. So one, are we looking at the possibility of actually having volunteers work for you that aren't necessarily get paid? Because I'm all about being really conscious about where you're investing your dollars.
I will say that that is a rarity for what I do in where I am, because Asheville is one of those locations that has a lot of professionals and not a lot of jobs. So we don't have a lot of people who don't have experience or are willing to do TFP. We have a lot of people, and they don't have enough work, so they're not very flexible on what they get paid or how much they get paid because they're surviving off of it.
And I'm all about people getting paid for what their careers are. Absolutely. I kind of go back and forth between the two depending on the job. So like right now, you guys probably see Sienna on my page all the time with different modeling things. When we went out to Vegas and did the workshop out there, her flight was covered, her stay was covered. You know, she was paid by the photographers that were at the workshop as well. They had like big community tip jar and stuff. She got paid for that. With projects like the Reliquarian, a lot of the time she's working time for print or just time really because she believes in the project. Now, I do think that in order to have like your core group of people, like if you're familiar with Jeff Rojas, he was calling my girls the Neapolitan because I had a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. And he's like, oh, look, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, my favorite flavors. And it stuck through the rest of WPPI. But they come with me everywhere. So they definitely get rewarded for loyalty. So it's the kind of thing where I do it in reverse. If you come and you're putting in your time and your energy and your talents, and I see that you're actually invested in what I'm doing and not just interested in what I'm going to pay you, you are the first person that I call when I do have paid work. And a lot of times, like even when I'm testing new makeup artists and things, like they'll come in for the first one, they understand it's time for print. It's basically an interview or an audition for them to come in and try it out. So even though they come in under the assumption that they're not getting paid, that they're interviewing for a position, I always end up at least covering their kit fee when they leave, which comes out as even more because if they're expecting to get paid, they're expecting to get paid. If they're not and they get paid anyway, then that makes them aware of the fact that I'm not just interested in their talents and what they can do for me, but that it is symbiotic. So there are always people that are willing to learn and willing to invest what they're doing if they're invested in the project. And you are one of the most unique artists that I have come across, both as fellow colleagues and people that have studied under me. What you're doing is something that there are not a lot of people doing down there or anywhere else. So while there may be a lot of photographers and there may be a lot of models and there may not be a lot of professional jobs, what they're getting from you is different than what they're getting from all of the other lot of photographers. Mm-hmm. So I think being very clear about what you're doing and what they're getting out of it, because there's tons and tons of things in their portfolio about photography, but not necessarily sculpture or some of the mixed media things that you do. That's something new that they can add that they can also use in their portfolio and go, look, I'm not a one-trick pony. I have more talents and abilities. Look at how diverse I am. So don't discount it. I'm always happy to pay. And my general rule as far as that goes, because there's always the argument of does the model pay the photographer pay the model? Mm-hmm. My general rule on that is whoever comes first. So if I come to you and say I want to work with you, I come with my wallet on the table because I'm seeking out your services then. You know, anytime a model contacts me and says, hey, let's work together, I assume that they're paying me because they reached out to me. Now, I will make the rare exception, and again, that's for personal projects and things that I'm doing, but you know, those are always the first people that I add to my list too when they go, oh, hey, I'd love to work with you. And I go, well, look, here's my rates in studio. However, I do have all of these personal projects going on and I teach classes and things like that. And if you would like to come and work with me without the investment of your money, then I need the investment of your time, and it's on my terms. Some say no, some say yes, but I have a list of probably 50 people that I could call if I needed to work with them for free. So I think building that core group is important. And I think looking outside the box for them, like I've pulled people out of gas stations and Chinese buffets before to work on my projects. No shame, sat right down. How's the dumplings? Want to work for me? I love your voice. And and my husband's like, let's go, kids. Like, you know, but it totally works. And there have been people that have been like, I'll think about it. And then they'll go and they'll research and they'll be like, oh, look, she's not crazy. Okay, well, maybe we'll do that. Like the guy in the Chinese buffet, I was like, oh my God, I heard you talking and I loved your voice. And my name's Jessica Lark, and I don't have a card, but I wrote my number and my email down on my son's Darth Vader notebook, and I would really love you to get in touch. And he's like, I'm really sorry. You're very sweet, but I'm married. And I was like, no, you don't understand. And my husband was just sitting there like, Jess, just let the man eat his dumplings in peace. Like, you know, but we've been friends for years now. And I have a whole bunch of stories like that where I have just grabbed people randomly from other people as well. And, you know, I think sometimes people get weirded out. And I maybe had a little bit of an advantage because I'm like a 5'2" little like white girl. Like I'm not intimidating very many people. So, you know, it's a little different than if I was like, you know, hey, would you like to come into my basement and let me photograph you naked? And I was a middle-aged man that like looked like I should be a linebacker, or like then it might be a little less yes. But I do believe that a lot of it's your personality and your intention, and I'm excited about everything. So my group makes fun of me all the time for jazz hands, because when I get excited, like I'll just be sitting and like in my own little world staring out, and then I get an idea for what we're doing and I'm like, ooh, and they're like, oh, she did the hands, what's she got now, you know? But I'm excited about everything, and that gets contagious, and I have seen you be able to be like that. I think you would be able to build a core group that would help lessen the financial output that you're putting out initially. Another way to look at that would be to maybe look at royalties. You know, your pieces take weeks and months sometimes to create because of how in-depth the process is. Yeah. So, I mean, if you have the expendable income and you're putting it out and you're not worrying about it because you know you're going to get the return on investment, that's fine. Go for it. But one of the other things that I might look at doing is a royalty agreement in your contract that says, look, you get paid when I get paid, because I can't give you money until I get money. Because that is the part of every artist is that we only make the money once we sell the work. And if it takes you 6 months to make the work, you're putting an awful lot of money out on these pieces before you're putting any back in. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so if you created a contract that not only had your model release and what you are and aren't able to do, but had a royalty agreement, you could put a royalty agreement up to a certain amount. So like when I signed the contract for my books to go to the publisher gave me an advance. Okay, so for the sake of Jess doesn't do math. We'll say that your advance is $1,000 for a book. Okay. That money goes towards a future withdrawal from the books that are going to sell. So they gave me $1,000 to go write the book, to give me money to work so that I could dedicate my time to it before it was available for sale, because they're not going to make any money off of it till it sells either. Then once the book went into actual bookstores, before I got another dollar, that $1,000 had to be paid back in royalties. So if I was making $1 a book, I had to sell 1,000 copies of the book, and then my advance was paid. And then every book that sold after that, I make money from indefinitely. That's a standard royalties agreement. Now you can set the percentage whatever you want, 10, 15, 20, 25%. It depends on how many people. If you have 10 people working on a project and you give each of them 10%, you're making nothing. Yeah. You know, but if you give them 2 to 5%, then it becomes a matter of, for me, on the other side of that, how many do you sell? Because if you're like, oh, I'll give you 10% of everything I sell, but I haven't sold any prints or artwork in the last 6 months, well, then I'm pretty much doing time for print. So, and that's true. Sometimes it's a gamble, and I've done that with other projects and other people that I've worked with, and it hasn't panned out, but I've been invested in the project that I was working on, and I was working with good people I was having a good time with. The thing that you can do is you can create a royalties agreement where they get paid when you get paid. And certain projects, a lot of your pieces are one of a kind. So they'll be paid once when the piece sells. If you have ones like the things that you were doing for the watch faces and different contracts in art that you're selling where the print can be sold over and over again or can be licensed, then you can set that at an amount. You'll be paid a 10% royalty up to $500. So if they're getting paid $50 or $100 per that 10%, if you're selling it for $1,000 and they're getting 10%, they're getting $100 off everyone. As soon as you sell 5 of them, that's it. The rest of the profit from 6 to 6 billion is yours because they've been properly compensated for their time.
So I should shoot that same type of philosophy for work that I shoot for stock, since that is something that sells over and over again.
Absolutely. I don't see why not, because then you're not putting the money out until you've made the money. It's very easy to give someone $10 when you have $100 in your pocket. It's not as easy to give someone $10 when you have $0 in your pocket.
Exactly.
So you're essentially, you're borrowing from your future self to pay your people right now on the belief that you're going to sell it, which ideally and hopefully you will. But if for whatever reason that specific photo, that specific project doesn't sell, then you're out that money and you've invested not only the money, but the time to do it. And everybody got paid except for you, and it was your mastermind.
Okay, now for your models or your MUAs, the other people in your group, your core group that you use over and over again, do you have like a single agreement that spans a length of time, or do you have them sign new agreements for each project, or like how does that work for you?
It depends. It depends on who they are and who I'm working with. Like Sarah, Jane, and Remy are my 2 makeup artists. I don't work with anybody else unless I need someone for a specific job and neither of them are available. So both of them have standing contracts as a standing independent contractor, and it's basically like going on a month-to-month lease that says that this contract is valid for all work from the start date on until amended in writing and signed by both parties. So at any time, I can be like, I don't really fire them, I only fire Sienna, but at any time I could be like, look, this isn't working. Or, Sarah decides to move to New York and do makeup in New York City or go out to LA or, whatever's going on, I need to hire someone else. She's not available for the times. If I need to cancel that contract, then it's canceled in writing and it's attached as an addendum to the contract. And there's a cancellation date that says that this model release is no longer valid. And so they'll sign the addendum on the original contract saying, yes, I agree with the date. So today is August 22nd, 2017. This contract is no longer valid. And then they'll sign an attachment sheet under that gets stapled to it and put in my files that says, we, the undersigned, agree that our current contract has come to a close, that no more work will be utilized without a new contract, and that all monies have transferred hands as needed. I don't owe them anything. They don't owe me any work or any money. We're good. And it ends like that.
And do you have any type of digital contracts, or do you have do you do everything paper, or do you have anything digital? Like if you go to a location and meet them there?
Now I use Pixify for everything. And it saves, this is one of the links that you were asking for. PIXIFI.
IFI, not IFY. Okay. PIXIFI. Sorry.
They have a really, really good support group on Facebook that once you buy the program, they let you in. And all of the other members that have had the program forever, they answer questions sometimes faster than even the support staff does. But the support staff's really good about getting back to it too. So I came across them a couple of years ago and kind of test ran it and then let it go. But now that I run the turning page and have such high volume, and I have 13 different artists that are contracted to work for me that are shooting and videoing different things. And I have makeup artists and I have hairdressers and I have all these people coming in, and they're all working on different events at different times that are spaced out into 2019. I have to keep everything meticulously organized. And Pixify lets me do that not only with all of the contracts with my clients, but all the contracts with my contractors, with my employees, and it keeps track of all my finances for me. And I have to do such minimal amount of work. And what the minimal amount of work is I do have to do, I make Mackenzie do. So she handles 95% of that for me. But Pixify is nice because they have a whole plethora of contracts in there for you, which is really nice. And actually, if you want, we'll take a look at it real quick. And then I'm gonna move on. Give me just a second. So the nice thing is they have all these contracts that have been written up by their people and gone over, and they're completely you know, all legal jargon kind of stuff. Let's see. Screen share. Let me get out. Okay, so I will show you just what the top of the screen looks like. Because I can't show you any of my client info, but can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So this is what the Pixify welcome screen looks like. And so when I sign in, this is what I see. I have 0 events scheduled for today. I have 13 new leads that have come in that I have to send out and start the workflow process and answer all of those. I have 8 upcoming events going on this year that haven't happened yet. You can create task lists for what you need to get done in the day, and it'll list how many tasks there are. There's 63 overdue tasks because I don't like the task list, and Mackenzie keeps trying to get me on it, but I handwrite them. This is all of the money that's come in so far. This is all of the money that's receivable that I haven't gotten so far. And this is since I've put Pixify in and started inputting everything, which I only started doing a couple of 3 months ago, maybe. So it'll go back to the day that you started, but it'll keep all of this out. And so as we add an event, like if I book another wedding, I answer one of these leads and they end up booking a wedding for $5,000 and they put a deposit down, this will go up to 20 grand receivable for when that's due. So it keeps track of all of that for me. And then I can go in and see upcoming events that are going on. When you mouse over it, it'll tell you the times and where they're at and addresses and things like that. You can go in and see all your latest leads and things like that and that kind of stuff. Now, when you go over to the contracts, you can also see different contracts for the people. These are all people that work for me. So he's one of my videographers, one of my videographers, one of my photographers, and those are all the contracts that have to do with those. When you go into templates here, they have a whole bunch of different templates that are in here already. So you can go to Show Template Wizard. And they have all of these: mini session, second shooter agreement, portrait session, glamour, boudoir, wedding, model release, portrait cancellation agreements, all of that stuff. So you can click on any one of these, and these are all from Pixify itself. And go to Add Template. And then when you go into your templates, it will show up. Now I have all of mine personalized, but this would be a really good starting point if you were going in. So it's got all of the information. Now you'll notice some of these are in the parentheses. Those are all values that you can add. So the nice thing about it too is that you can edit and amend the contract. So if I want them to sign right here that they're adding on services, I can go up and click Add Initial field. And then when they view that, there will be a spot for them to initial here. Now I can go in and you can see here all of the things. So as I create an account, if I created an account for you, Ava, and you and I were going to get together and you were having an event tomorrow, I could put all of that in, where we were going, what the start and the end type is, the location, etc., the date, your name, address, all of your contact information. If we're looking at weddings, a lot of times I'm putting in multiple addresses, multiple clients and contacts, you know, maybe the groom, the mother of the bride, you know, the invoice info. So as you create invoices, all of that will come in as well. Are you still with me? I'm going through this pretty quick.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Okay, so all of this is information, and then as you click on any of these, it adds them in here to your contract. So if you want to write your own, it just auto-populates the information, and as long as this is under your file info, then it'll have it'll input that in when you go to actually look at the thing. So we have, I'll leave that for a second. This is my favorite client, Testy Test. And he lives at my address, rent-free. So as you go and you click on an event, you can add an event, and it'll have the date that it's booked on, what time it is, what time it goes to, all of the information, and then it'll also store their invoices, contracts, etc. So if you go to invoices, you can go to create new invoice, put in all of the information, pick a collection. So we'll go down and pick. You can also like put in all of your packages. So if you have something set up, you can go in and select which one they're going. So we'll go and say they want the premiere. In fact, he's really in love with my work, so he'll go up to the feature film for 15 grand. You can put your tax ID in and create the invoice, and it'll ask you if you want to edit. It'll break it all down for you. You can put in auto payments. It really, like, it does everything for you. And then that's under his event. So then if I go into his test events and go to contracts, you'll see over here that there's staff. I can go and assign a staff member to it. So if you have your group of people that you're working with, you can input all their info in, and you can go through and select who you want to shoot this, what their job is, makeup artist, assistant, you know, spotter, cinematographer, whatever that is. And then auto confirm says, yes, they're definitely on the job. I never do that because the next step that I'm going to do is send them a contract that they have to sign before they're confirmed on the job. Because if they don't sign the contract or the release, I'm not working with them. You could also keep as staff all of your models and people that are working with you. You can also go in and add vendors. So for me, I have all of the different reception venues and things that we do. They can, what studio we're at, things like that. And I can click on any of these vendors. We'll go up to Brandy one. You can rate the vendors too. And so that gives you kind of a snapshot with it. Now, if I go to create a contract, and we'll go to model. Well, let's go to weddings so we can actually see that. The model release would have all the details of the model release, but you can see here that when we go and look, all of these have now auto-populated to the right date, to the right name, Testy Test, what time it starts, where it's at, the locations, and then it has the thing to sign. So when that's all done, I can save the contract. Oh, contract name is required. And then once we save it, you can edit it, and then you can send it. So we'll add a recipient. Now, because I put this under Testy Test name, they automatically come up. But if I had other people on it, like my makeup artist, like a location that I was working at or whatever else, they'll also populate here as people you can send it to. If their name doesn't come up, you can just type in a name and add them as a recipient. So once you save it, it will ask you if you want to send that. And then you can also require payments. So people that are paying you, if you add a payment, it'll add their deposit. So they can't actually sign the contract until they put the deposit down. They have to pay for it first. So now that all this is done, you'll see it says in person. So if they're with me right now and we click in person, it'll tell them that by clicking on the button below and launching the contract to sign in person, you agree that you're waiving the added security benefits of having a uniquely generated password, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if they're with me, they can click to sign in person. The whole contract comes up. They have to initial here. They have to initial here. And then they have to type, and then they have to sign their signature. So they'll... and then they sign. If they're not with me, then I just send it to them via email. And it comes to me, or it comes to them. And then as soon as they sign it, it'll come back to me as a signed thing. So they sign it all digitally. So I very rarely have them like sit and sign in person when we can do it all digitally, because they still have to sign, they still have to do everything. It takes care of it. And I don't have to waste my time sitting down with them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if contracts scare you and invoicing in the business side, and we're talking about fear, I am all about conquering your fears. I am also about spending your day doing things that you actually want to do with your day. So Pixify might be a really good set for you because they have all the model releases, they have the contracts, they're already done up and in there as a template, and you can just go in and kind of amend and choose what needs to go in there. Like for me, I offer payment plans. They have the option in the invoice to break down the payment plans, but they didn't have a contract that was specifically for the payment plan the way that I do it. So I had to go in and add that in. So you can kind of pick and choose. If you wanted to add the royalty option in, you could go in and add that in as a payment thing. And you can list them as vendors so that they know what they get paid. So all of my contractors, once I book that event, if I put somebody else on it, they also get sent a contract. And the contract says, you're showing up at this event, you're going to shoot for 8 hours, you're going to be paid a rate of $100 an hour, totaling $800 for the day. You know, that money will be paid, you know, after I receive footage, yada, 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 whatever the contract rules are. So you can kind of amend and choose that. And then, of course, you know, being a smart person, we always like consult a lawyer for legal stuff and yada, yada, yada.
Okay, so one last question that I have is, if we're in a situation where instead of, we're not talking about a photographer to model, but instead we're talking about a company who's like, hey, we have this space on our wall and we're looking for this type of work, and we're taking offers from photographers to put work on this space that we're going to purchase, and they're, you know, they're trying to take offers from people, how much they're going to charge to put something up there. Mm-hmm. What are things that we should look for, or questions that we should be asking when we're going into a situation like that, where it's not someone coming to us and going, hey, we want to pay you, but it's a company going, okay, who wants to do this for us? This is our budget.
Well, then you're just bidding on a job. So it is still a client. You know, it's the same thing, whether it's somebody saying, I have this space on my wall, fill it with something pretty, and bid against every other photographer that wants to fill it. Or it's a bride going, I'm getting married, tell me why I should hire you instead of every other bride that's coming in, or boudoir, or a seascape, or, you know, whatever it is. It's still you competing, and your job is to do two things: to be competitive in value and to sell yourself well. Notice I didn't say price, but value, because if I take a picture of a rock in an ocean and Mike Stapleton takes a picture of a rock in an ocean, if I charge $5 and he charges $500, you can see the difference in the value between my ocean rock and his seascape. Because that is what it is. So you have to, if you're gonna be overpriced comparatively, and in overpriced, I just mean that your price is $1 or more higher than what everyone else is doing, you have to have the value that shows them that it's worth moving up that budget. Now, to be fair, The budget is the budget for a lot of people and in a lot of companies, unless you're a really good salesman. So that becomes a matter for me of looking at it, and I'm a pretty good read on people with, is that your budget or is that what you're putting in front as your budget? Because the bottom line is people will spend more money than they plan to if they really want what's being offered. But if you have $1,000 in your bank account, you're not spending more than $1,000 unless you give me a credit card, which I can take as well, which is a lot of why we offer the payment plans. So if they're dropping out a message and going, hey, we have this wall space, our budget is $500, for you to go in and go, I have this beautiful piece and you can have it for $2,000, is almost going to guarantee you that you don't get the job, because there are other people that will stay within their budget that are good enough, even if they like yours best. But I would absolutely start going through and going, well, for $500, here's what I can do for you. However, if you wanted to upgrade to $750, we could do this. And if you really wanted to put the budget aside for $1,000, this is what we could do. Now you are not one choice in a bunch of options for who they can hire. You are multiple choices that you have given them to work with you that works within their budget and within their style. So if they love your work, they can go, okay, well, we can't go all the way up to 1,000, but we really love the 750. Do you think it's worth finding the extra 250 for? No, I don't think so. Okay, well, she gave us this one for the 500 that's within our budget. Let's go with that. And then when that does well and they get all the compliments or they sell the piece or whatever's going on, then they're like, that girl did really well for us and she was conscious of our budget, but she has bigger options, you know. And then they talk to someone else who's like, hey, I need to find a good artist that I can put their work on my walls over in my building. And they're like, oh, you know what? We have this girl. We used her for a smaller budget project, but she does these really big ones. She'll take this too. And then you get the referral work. So I'm always conscious of both. But rather than trying to prove my value by, you know, charging what I'm worth and educating my clients, I try to be conscientious of what it is they're looking to invest and then see how I can adapt to that to give them something that is good value, good price, and worthy of the time and energy investment that I'm putting in.
Is that something that you would put in your statement when you're submitting, you know, when you're submitting your offer? Well, this is how much time I would put into it, especially I mean, not all situations do they tell you the budget up front.
Mm-hmm.
They tell you the size, the specs, what they're looking for, and then they ask for bids to see where price ranges are.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something that you would put in? Would you say, well, this is how much time I would spend on it, or this is what I would do? Or would you not do that and go, well, this is my work. If you're interested in my prices, contact me?
It depends on how you price your work. If you price your work according to the amount of hours that you put in, then yes, you might negotiate based on this is how many hours I put in, but really they don't care. Okay. Whether you put 50 hours or you put 5 hours in, they don't care. They care about the print that's going on the wall. Your time investment means nothing to them. The quality of the output of the final image or the final art piece is what they care about. So I listen to a lot of people justify in a lot of different genres of our industry, and they're like, oh, I don't go into your restaurant and ask you to feed me for free, or I don't expect a plumber to do it, and you don't understand my cost of doing business, and I have so many thousands invested in my, you know, equipment, and I have overhead with this, and I have to have insurance, and I have to do this, and blah, blah, blah. And if you understood, they don't care about any of that shit. Not any of it. They don't. They care that you go and you take beautiful pictures of them, their family, their dog, their house, you know, that you create a beautiful print for them to hang above their couch. That's what they worry about. Your problems are your own problems. When have you ever heard anybody else come in and you go, I'm not going to take that bid for that contractor job. We decided to go with another company because you were overpriced. And he's like, you don't understand. I have to pay to change the oil in my truck before I even go and pick up the wood. Like, you'd be like, get out of here. It's ridiculous. Like, nobody cares. Yes, that is the cost of doing business. If you don't like it, don't be in business, you know? And so you have to really be able to put yourself on the other side of the table, because the blackboard for a student looks totally different than the classroom does for the teacher at the teacher's desk. They're two totally different perspectives. And the better that you are at sitting across from someone and understanding how your work and the transaction and contract looks for them, the more you will close the job and close at a higher rate because you understand it. So if somebody contacted me and said, hey, I have this commission, we need a couple of art pieces, we're looking for bids for the job, I would absolutely follow that up with more questions and go, we would love to submit. And we have clients that invest as little as $500 a month to rent pieces and people that are at $6,000 a month. Where do you feel like you fall on that spectrum? How many pieces are you looking to do? You know, here's the size and the parameters, but tell me a little about your company style and the kind of clientele that come in. If you could have any famous art piece hanging on the wall, whose would it be? Because the piece I'm going to offer for someone who says Picasso is totally different than the piece I'm going to offer for somebody who says Peter Lake. You know?
I completely hear that. Thank you.
Yeah. And it also shows them, and that may be things that they didn't think of, but it also helps you stand out. So while they're going through, and let's say they get 50 applicants that are like, yes, give me your money, I will give you my art, because they will, you know, they're going to pull aside and go, hey, this person was the only one that asked us what kind of style we wanted. She gets it. What kind of style do we want? I want Picasso. I want Monet. I want Degas. You know, well, which one are we? You know, and that helps them understand. And while they're debating that, they're keeping your name and your conversation in mind. So when they go, how many applicants did we get? I don't know, like 50 to 100. Well, who were the top ones? Even if you weren't the top one, even if there's 10 people that are probably above you in just time and experience and talent and expertise in the output, your name is going to be in their head because they were discussing things based on the questions that you asked them. You know, so understanding your client, don't worry about educating your client, worry about understanding your client. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much. Yes, very, very much.
Okay, so out of contracts and invoices and releases and things, what do you think is the most essential to you if you needed one right now? Which one first?
Is that to me or is that everybody?
Yeah.
For me, I would probably say model.
Okay, so this month then, in the library that we have on the Patreon, I'm going to send you my model releases for adult and minor releases. And then I will also send you a recommended royalty agreement that you can amend. But I want you to know that it is just a recommendation, and I fully support you putting it in front of a lawyer friend or a hired lawyer or somebody else just to make sure that it's all good, because it varies by state and all that stuff, and don't sue me. But we'll make that the contract that goes in the library this month for you. Okay?
Hi, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to spend another 20-30 minutes with you guys. If you're not in the group, you're getting disconnected and you can't watch anymore. So I will talk to you guys soon.